Okay, everybody. I'm here, and now we're going to talk about the astrological houses and Venus retrograde in these astrological houses. Now, first, I got to tell you, Venus is the planet of love, beauty, romance, finance, relationships, harmony, and our values. You know, it stations retrograde today means that the planet itself is not going backwards. What's really happening as far as talking mathematical physics is that the planet Earth has a rotational orbit around the sun, and the path around the sun is what cosmologists call the ecliptic. Okay? In addition to the Earth moving around the sun in this orbital pathway, which we call the ecliptic, the Earth itself rotates on its own axis. So the Earth is rotating like this, but moving around the ecliptic, around the sun, moving like this. Going around the sun is what gives us the years. Going around the Earth on its own axis, rotating, because it's rotating on its own in addition to moving around. So you're talking about two circular rotations going on. And the circular rotation of the Earth moving around its own axis is what defines the tropical sidereal or sidereal, which is more of the space-time. The tropical is the Earth time, which means that we measure things according to the Earth's grid. Particularly, our main reference point, or three, is the equator and the prime meridian. Okay? And people who do the weather, they have to study these scientific principles as well as the astrologers, because we use the same mathematical theories to be able to break the planet into different grids, into longitudes and latitudes, into different rate of motion that we can break down into degrees, minutes, and seconds of arc. It's very mathematical. I'm not going to bore you with the details. So I will tell you this, though, that when the Earth slows down around the sun, it's not that the Earth in its own movement around its own axis slows down. That never slows down. If it does, life on Earth ceases to exist. The Earth spins probably 70,000 miles per second. 70,000 miles per second. So can you imagine the Earth's axis slowing down? There'll be earthquakes, tsunamis. We'll have another flood. So the Earth, when it moves around its own axis, that's not going to slow down, and that's not what's meant when we talk about retrograde. When we talk about retrograde, the actual mathematical phenomenon that's going on in space is that the planet Earth is slowing down in its orbital movement around the sun. This happens on two major points, which is the vernal equinox, right? And the summer solstice. During the vernal equinox, the Earth tends to speed a little faster. During the summer solstice, the Earth tends to slow down. That's why we get the term dog days afternoon, which occurs in August, because it seems like the sun is moving at its slowest and it's closest to our Earth ecliptic, or we're closer to the ecliptic, to the sun's orbit. And that's why August is so hot. The closer we get to the sun, because the orbit of the Earth around the sun is not perfect. It's very spherical. So when you're far away from the sun in its orbit, that defines the winter. When it's closer to the sun, that's the heat summer. That's Cancer. That's what we call if you look at the globe, the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. These are the major points in which there's major oscillation between the wobble of the earth when it's moving from season to season or quarter to quarter. And that has a mathematical equation connected to it. And when the earth slows down, which happens 3 times a month, but depending on the planet that's preceding it or that is follow behind it. And Venus, Mercury, Jupiter, Pluto, Uranus, Neptune, all these planets have their own different orbital rates of motion. But the two that are most important, because they're closer to planet Earth, is that of Mars and Venus. And also Mercury. I'm sorry, it's 3. I forgot to mention, I'm getting old. Mercury is number 1 because it's closest to the sun and it moves the fastest. Second is Venus. Third is Mars. These planets are closer to the orbit of the Earth. So when they slow down, or when actually they don't slow down, they kind of do, but it's actually more complex, and I'm not going to go into that here. But because we live on planet Earth, we have to start from Earth as our reference point and starting point mathematically. So if the Earth's rotation and speed is slowing down, that's going to make the other planets appear like they're moving faster or slower. Because we have planets like Venus, Mars, and Mercury as inner planets, if the Earth slows down, and because these planets are closer to the sun, they move faster. But if the Earth slows down, it looks like they're moving behind us. It's not that they're moving behind us, it's that the Earth's rate of speed is slowing down. And it gives an illusion like the planets are moving backwards, which we call retrograde, but the planets are not moving backwards. Our speed of rate of motion is slowing down. And that happens more prevalent as we move towards the summer solstice, which is the Tropic of Cancer, which is we are about a couple of months away. And that's why we are experiencing so many retrogrades in our solar system at the moment. And of course, if you are a esoteric scientist like myself that deals with astrology and the spirituality, we know that this has a spiritual counterpart or component here on this plane. For cosmologists, this is not important because they don't believe in that. So now I'm going to discuss with you or to you what the planet's retrograde per house means. And hopefully you can see yourself in these examples, okay? If you have Venus in the first house, and she's in Aries right now, and it's retrograde. So we're talking about wherever Aries is in your birth chart is where Venus right now is moving the heavens. That's where she's at right now. And she's retrograde. And Aries is the sign of the pioneer, the impulse, the go-getter, aggressive, and, his eternal love, if you remember Greek mythology, is that he's in love with Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty. That's Venus. That's Libra, the opposite of Aries. So understand that the Venus retrograde will affect both Aries and Libra. But more importantly, you will feel it in your mundane life if you understand and if you have your chart done where Venus falls in the astrological houses. Because the astrological houses let you know which area of life she is affecting you. Okay? So now we're going to go with the astrological houses. If Venus is retrograde in the first house, which is the self-presentation, the way you present yourself, the personality and appearances. How do you present yourself? Is it your best version? So if Venus is retrograde, you might be sloppy in your appearance. You might be dressing nice and looking good, but you got dirt under your fingernails. Or you got plaque in your teeth. Or they're yellow. Or your lips are crusty and rusty and they need like a little lip gloss. Or you might smell or have an unpleasant odor. Or You might put on something that you think looks good but looks tacky. That's how Venus retrograde in the first house can come across. The first house is the image, the way people see you. So if Venus is retrograde and you happen to have Aries, where Venus is at right now, as your rising sign, then Venus will make you kind of a little awkward these next couple of months that's coming by. So pay extra attention to your upkeep, your beauty. Stay on top of that. If you have Aries in the second house, where Venus is right now, and it's retrograde, then you're talking about physical and financial resources. Are you getting what you want from what you have? Or are the stuff and things in your life a help or a hindrance? Okay? Talking about physical and financial resources. Did you overspend and now you're having problems taking care of financial responsibilities? Did you buy those Manolo shoes when you knew that you needed to pay the car note? And now that the car note is due, you don't know what to do to get the money to pay that car note because you just had to have those Manolo shoes. And that's how Venus can hit you if she's in Taurus. Are you getting what you want from what you have? For example, if you buy something, let's say you buy a nice, beautiful mattress that goes for the bedroom because, that's love, that's Venus. That's a Venus department. But you find out because you wanted to cut corners, you bought it in a secondhand store, and now the mattress got bed bugs. Now it's going to cost you more to get a real bed, not to mention the cleaning bill to clean the apartment because now you got bed bug infestation in that room. Now you got to send everything to the cleaners and you got to really pay money to now clean your stuff but also get a new bed. So it costs you more if you would have purchased it brand new. This is Venus retrograde in the second house because Venus rules money and you can squander money or spend it irresponsibly with a Venus retrograde. So you got to be careful of your purchases. If you don't want to return it, don't buy a major purchase around the retrograde with dealing with Venus, especially if it deals with something that's beautiful, like jewelry, clothes, or buying even weave for your hair. But this is my real hair, by the way. Okay, let's not get it twisted. Now, but people who actually buy weed, it can fall apart, or it can be chemical and fuck up your hair or your scalp or something. Anything that deals with beauty is bound to go wrong. If you buy a lipstick or powder foundation, you might develop a rash because it doesn't match with your skin. So that's a problem. These are things that can happen with retrograde with Venus because Venus rules cosmetics, lipsticks, gloss, eyeliner, foundation, beauty. All that stuff is bound to go wrong on a retrograde or complicated. So be careful. If you got Venus in the third house, you're dealing with self-expression. Are you clearly and effectively making your desires known? What do you even want? When Venus goes retrograde and she's in the third house of communication, which is Gemini, right? Aries, Taurus, Gemini. Gemini is number 3. So if Venus is in the third house, that's a Gemini house, which means that Venus comes across in the fields of the intellect, the mind, and communication. And if you come across as oop-oop-be-doop, then you might not be taken seriously, and people might not respect you, or they might not take into account what you have to say. Perfect example was Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe, a Gemini, and she, although she was beautiful, this was an intelligent broad, but she wasn't seen or respected because of her intelligence, but because of her looks. And that was Marilyn Monroe's biggest heartbreak. Is that, and this woman, she read about Malcolm X. She read about Marcus Garvey. This woman was smart, but because of her looks, they treated her like a oop-oop-be-doop, Barbie doll, And And clearly, this is Venus retrograde in Gemini, which she had when she was born in 1928. So then we have the fourth house, which is the soul, the core values. How have your values shifted? Are you living aligned with your true nature? Are you living out of fear? Are you living out of necessity? Venus in the fourth house or in Cancer will make you marry someone for money even though you don't love them. Because Cancer is so afraid of being poor and of being alone and unloved, kind of like Capricorn, that they don't marry for money. They'll marry for security. And with Venus retrograde, you might be afraid of making a decision that will help advance your family or make you go to the next level. Cancer is the sign of business and money. Business and money, and Cancer is fantastic at that. Ooh! But with Venus retrograde in the fourth house or in the house of Cancer, there may be problems with finances. And this can bring up your anxieties. And you might be a nervous wreck by the time Venus goes direct. Because you don't know what to do if there's a problem with money and security. Which is very important to Cancer. Now, number 5. Heart, creative impulse. What is truly inspiring to you? That's number 1. Are you inspired? The Venus in the fourth house retrograde, which is the house of Leo, creativity. If you're an actor, a professional actor, if you're in theater, or if you're a writer for television or for the theater or for the screen, you might get a writer's block. You might get a creative block. You might not be able to function. Also, Leo, or the fifth house, is the house of, your libido. If Venus is retrograde in the fifth house of Leo, your sex drive might go down. And that can happen for a multiplicity of reasons. Your health, nutrition, maybe you're not getting enough rest for your body to get a recuperation period in which then it can build up these energies for that you can be at your optimum in sex, because sex requires a lot of energy. So, have you given your body enough rest? To what are you giving birth? If it's not sex, if that's fine, and if your values are the same, then as a creative force with Venus and Leo, what are you doing to propagate creativity and help influence your fellow human beings, which is a Leo function? If you're not doing anything towards that respect, that also can become a problem and a source of stagnation that can last 90 days, 3 months, which is the time about that Venus goes retrograde. If she's in the sixth house, then we're talking about the mundane vicissitudes of life. Okay, routines, daily life. Is life working for you, or are you spinning the wheels? Trying to make something happen. Do you practice self-care? Do you pamper yourself? Do you take care of yourself when the world is so harsh and you come from work and you close the door to the outside world? As a Virgo, Venus in the sixth house. I'm a Virgo. And you know what I do? Bitch gets in the tub. And I put all kinds of chamomiles and gardenias. I put anise. I put cloves. I take sunflowers. I put it in there real girly. I nurture the woman in me. And I let myself just completely submerge and let the negative influences of daily life, which is what Virgo rules, to just be drained in the bathtub. After you get out, you look like and feel like a new person. When Venus goes retrograde in the sixth house, so in Virgo, not in Virgo, but in the sixth house, because she's retrograde in Aries. So if you have Aries in the sixth house, which belongs to Virgo, then you need to slow down and learn to pamper yourself and start to eat properly. Because if you have Venus in Aries in the sixth house of Virgo, then you're probably not taking good care of yourself. You're probably gulping down the food and not chewing the food and letting it digest mechanically so that it can go down and be digested chemically. You might not be you might eat and then you dart out the door and run. Not allowing the proper digestion for the food. You know what I'm saying? These are the things that can go wrong with Aries in the 6th house with Venus retrograde. You might also be an impulsive shopper and not even use what you buy, like what a hoarder does. That's another way that the Venus that can be retrograde and affect you in this house. If it's in the 7th house, which is the natural house of Venus, okay, relationships and subconscious projections. If we have weaknesses and insecurities, we will tend to, and when Venus is retrograde in the 7th house of Aries, because it has to be in Aries, because that's where she's retrograde now. Means that she might have insecurities that she doesn't want to face or even be truthful, so she's going to project them onto her partner. And that could be a problem, because she might not have the courage at the moment to face it within herself. So she'll project it onto the partner, and this can cause argument, problem. They might sleep in separate bedrooms, or he might sleep on the couch. And these are things that you have to watch out for when Venus goes retrograde in Aries in the 7th house. Okay. Now, what do you truly want from your reflections? Or do you even know how to recognize when you see your own self in someone else? And what if it's something that you don't like in yourself that you see in someone else? Project it onto the partner. Will you be brave enough to be able to confront yourself, your own truth, and then make the necessary changes so that you don't sabotage the relationship that you're in? These are important questions for you to ask yourself. And a Venus retrograde in the 7th house in Aries, in the 7th house, opposing Libra, that will be on the ascendant. Okay, and what are you looking for outside of what is buried within? Because if you got something buried within you,